Welcome to Stockholm Tech Meetup. I am your host, Tyler Crowley, and that was one of my favorite new groups out of London called The Comet is Coming. And I couldn't think of a better act for today's very special 8th anniversary Stockholm Tech Meetup, all about impact investing and a topic near and dear to my heart. And we actually have not done this topic before. Tuva, correct me if I'm wrong, although we did do this for the Stockholm Tech Fest in 2016, right?
Yeah.
We added a whole extra day all about the, impact investing and everything like that. And that was a lot of fun and have been meaning to do something like this since, but haven't had the chance to. But I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into the news so that we can get to our special guests. For those who are joining us for the first time, you can join us at live.stockholm.tech with the special local spelling of Stockholm, STHLM, as every Swede spells it. And you can share that with your friends and whatnot. If you are on the live page, you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see the YouTube embed. And if you click into the YouTube player so that it launches the YouTube site or the YouTube app on your phone, then you can comment in the live chat. And if you comment in the live chat, I will see it here and I can engage with you that way and even put it up on the screen. Those of you who have joined us before know that. So moving onward, let's do the news as we normally do here. So we've got, like I said, the YouTube live chat. A bunch of fundraisings as usual. Boy, it was a busy month. Almi invests in Medarka for about $1 million. My buddy Frank at Cefello raising $1 million. This school platform doing also just over $1 million from Ericsson and H&M. Great for them. Another math investment. This one about $1.5 million. A very much needed app in the US, I can assure you. Is something good to help people learn math. Fieldy raising just over $2 million. I'm doing all of these in US dollars, kind of real-time conversions in my head. And you notice they're going up with each one of these. Stockholm-based Curb raising about $4 million for a virtual food court, mainly backed by EQT Ventures, our partner there. CodeSense announcing also $4 million from Adventure and Luminar. Future Ordering raising $4 million from Bonnier, Brightly Ventures, and a few others. And then I loved this one. This Swede's Anti-Instagram, which is a printable book of your social media photos, adds $10 million, called Once Upon. It's really starting to take off in the Nordics. EQT investing in another fantastic startup, in this case, Sana Labs, my friend Anna and Joel, raising 15 million if we stick with the US format. So 15 million for Sana. And then Tuva, you'll remember this one. Mina, they're now called Mina, raising about 18 million. But when they pitched, they were called Mina Tjänster.
Mina Tjänster, yeah. And they were acquired, or not acquired, but Swedbank did a big investment after our event.
Literally,
this was like 5 years ago. So
Swedbank was in the audience. Emma from Swedbank was so impressed with their pitch at our event that she invited them to the office for lunch the next day, where they started their big deal. They became an investor and a very big partner. And that was a fantastic matchup for them, and it's gone great ever since. We could not be happier for the team there at Mina Tjänster.
I think it's a great product. It's actually, I'm using it once in a while.
Yeah.
2 times every year.
I remember when they pitched, it was like the whole audience, I think we asked how many people would use this, and the whole audience raised their hand.
Yeah. So basically, for you who don't know what it is, it's basically an app that you can see all your subscriptions and you can close them, or you can switch to a better deal.
Right.
So for example, I realized that I had paid for Sats for my daughter for 5 years, and she's been there once.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's you have a lot of things that you tend to forget that
Sure. It's a dashboard with on and off switches for each of your subscriptions.
Yeah.
And they can look based on you just connect your inbox, and they can see all the subscriptions you have, and they make a dashboard for you, and they make it super simple. And then it's in a ways it's really clever because you start to see a lot of other subscriptions that based on what you've subscribed to, here's some other ones that you might want to turn on. Which it makes it very easy to subscribe to new things as well, which is the genius part of the platform.
Yeah.
It saves you money and it costs you money.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Congrats to them. It's a wonderful thing. Lub Foods raises $25 million from Khosla Ventures, which is fantastic. Khosla is one of the best investors in the entire world. As far as I know, this is their first investment in a Swedish startup. And it's great to have them doing their first one. For those who don't know Lub Foods, they are the company name behind the Nix bars, like the sugar-free Kex bars that are exploding. And I first got familiar with this from the Golspong Invest brothers, who I think were the first investors in this, and they're just doing an incredible job with that. And awesome that they got Khosla Ventures to do their new round. And then Budbee scores about 60 million for their last mile delivery, and this also coming from H&M Collab and Kinnevik. And Tink raises 100 million, 103 million as they start to go bigger and better, and that now puts them in the category of soon to be unicorn for 2021. So this could be Sweden's next new unicorn for 2021. And Swedish gaming powerhouse Stillfront raises about 400 million. There's so much money going into the Nordic video gaming right now. It's absolutely crazy. And then Swedish tech scale-up Truecaller gears up for an IPO. And Truecaller seeking valuation of 1 billion. So they also would be a new unicorn for 2021. So that would be 2 new tech unicorns for 2021, bringing us to, I think, 13. So it would be every year there's 1 or 2 now, and it's only January, and it looks like they're already baked in for 2021. So we're off to a great start, and the end of 2020 was fantastic for IPOs. Kind of speaking of the Truecaller IPO, you had Airbnb and DoorDash, Open Door. So it's a very hot environment right now. The door is open as it is, and there will be a lot of activity for our partners. NASDAQ will be very busy, no doubt. Other awesome news for people. Well, I mean, the kind of the message there is if you have an idea for to make the world a better place in any kind of way, now is the time to do it, because tech is very hot and there's lots of money around, as you just saw, especially in the Scandinavia area, especially in Stockholm. And there's also awesome incubators to help you with your idea. So here's a great example. The news broke just a couple days ago that Norrsken is launching a impact accelerator with a fantastic collection of unicorn founders as mentors, and $100,000 as part of that. And I think this will be a truly great program for the folks who get accepted to participate. So definitely encourage you to do. And we are very fortunate to have Suzanne from Norrsken as one of the guest investors today. I'm sure we can dive into that a little bit deeper. And Danske Bank also one of the investors today on the call. And they also have a impact accelerator called the Plus Impact Accelerator. And then their next program, they've been doing this for a little while. In fact, they have a new one, batch 5, coming up, which is circular economy within agri-food. And that starts on March 8th. So I think you need to apply now on the website here. If you need that, you can email me, or you can just Google Plus Impact Accelerator agri-food or Danske Bank, you'll find it. And apply now if you're doing anything in that category. I saw the last one, and I was super impressed with the startups that came out of their last batch 4. Really very impressive. So that's why I have not only no hesitation in recommending that program, but it's also why Danske Bank is on the call today. We'll talk more about that. And then here's a bunch of, so that's kind of all the fundraising news and whatnot. Here's some other really interesting contextual news that I thought was all very interesting. You've got Apple announcing rumors of moving to Gotham, opening an office in Gothenburg, which might seem strange until you realize they've also announced there's rumors that they're going to have their own self-driving car, their own car. The Apple car is coming. Those rumors started happening. You probably heard that, Tuva, in the last few days. This Apple car is now, the rumor mill's picking up on that. And then the self-driving car technology in Sweden is based in Gothenburg as a kind of companion to Volvo, in fact. So Autoliv and the team there, who's been part of TechFest in the past. So it might be, one might assume, why Apple's in Gothenburg and they're doing their car might have something to do with the self-driving aspect. And I'll let the people on Twitter go crazy with those rumors, but they seem to make sense to me. This, I think, is a very profound tweet by a very profound guy, Benedict Evans, who says, this is 2 days ago, if you unsubscribed from my newsletter after I discussed Twitter banning Trump and AWS banning Parler because you want to think about tech and ignore politics, you're going to hate the next 20 years. Tech is politics now and geopolitics. And he is very much right. And I have a whole bunch of really interesting articles to share with you right now to prove his point. Here's one. Russia may fine Russian citizens who use SpaceX's new Starlink internet service, which is a really crazy idea because Elon Musk is using SpaceX to put up thousands of these micro satellites that will create a new internet from space with very fast connectivity for anywhere on the world. I mean, even the most Antarctica on ships at sea will now have very fast Wi-Fi. And the problem with that is Russia is obviously likes to have control of the internet within Russia, as does China. The difference is China, it's very well known, it's very obvious. They're very clear about the fact that they block people from going to places they don't want them to go or block them from seeing things they don't want you to see. Russia does it a little differently, clearly. They let you go see the things that they don't want you to see, and then they make note of it. And then they follow you and watch you very closely from that point forward. And you're on their bad guy list, and you don't want to be on that list because you might find yourself flying out of a window before, like many of their doctors have, who have dared to say that their COVID situation is not going perfectly. So it will be very interesting to see if people are able to use the satellite internet directly in Russia and get the, kind of circumvent the control mechanisms there. But it gets more interesting than that because OneWeb just raised billions of dollars to compete with SpaceX, as has Amazon has a competing service. So there are now 3 very legitimate satellite internets being built simultaneously.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm about to drop. What's going on here? Am I in the wrong call?
No, you're in the right call, Mark.
We don't have time, and we don't have time. Well, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I went since 4 a.m. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's midnight here in
What's
Thailand.
Happening? Is there an agenda? Is there a hello? You're getting on and on and on, and it's interesting to listen to you in a normal situation, but I'm tired. What's happening?
Yeah,
hello.
It's midnight here in Thailand, so I can imagine I'm a little more tired than you. So just to finish, we have like 2 more news articles here, as we always do, every month now for 8 years. So Trump administration banning China's Xiaomi, which, as you can see in the tweet I put on the side, I predicted last month because they last month banned DJI. And as everyone knows, they're banning Huawei, which is interesting because now Ericsson and the Wallenberg family both are trying to tell the Swedish government, don't ban the Chinese companies. so it's creating this very strong political tension within tech. And that is my point, as Benedict Evans says, that tech is very much political. And it's what Americans are saying, as this New York Times article just said 2 days ago, that people are leaving San Francisco in part due to politics. And where they're going specifically, hopefully some of them will end up in Europe, but many of them are going to Miami. And here you have the mayor of Miami tweeting with people. As one person says here, okay, guys, hear me out. What if we move Silicon Valley to Miami? And the mayor says, you know, how can I help? And it's my job. And then someone says, I'm thinking of moving there. And the mayor's saying, DM me. And he's done quite an impressive job of getting several notable Silicon Valley investors and entrepreneurs to move to Miami already. But it seems to be between Miami and Austin. And then lastly, this is the last news article for this month, the insurgency at the Capitol had obviously a lot of people that everyone's been seeing all over the news. Many of them had weapons, and there is technology that can track in photos that people have weapons and their face and their facial recognition. And the big question is, as this person says very astutely, the technology is necessary to link the facial recognition and firearm detection and crowd control already exists. The question is how we want to integrate them, because once we do, there's no going back. So that is kind of the doorstep of 2021. One last little good news before we get into our guests here. Also out of the OpenAI, created this very ingenious and practically scary technology now, where you simply put in a text snippet and it will generate the images around that text image. So in the second one here, the chair in the shape of an avocado, it will instantly create images that don't exist of chairs in the shape of an avocado, or a storefront that has the word OpenAI written on it, and it will create that automatically. I can assure you by this time next year, it will be creating videos based on text snippets. So you could say, show me Joe Biden doing the Macarena, and you will have a video of Joe Biden dancing or even singing the Macarena in video in the next 12 months. So that's a look of the kind of scary dystopian look of where we're at today and where it's going tomorrow. And it's going to be a crazy year, but we couldn't have a better group of partners to do it with. EY, I think everybody knows. EQT Ventures, as I mentioned, funds many of the startups this month and every month that you just saw. 3Drops, which you'll be hearing a lot more about. That's that cool logo up there. Capole, you'll be hearing more about. Danske Bank is on the call today. NASDAQ, you know already. We've talked about IPOs. Visa, of course, you know. Hunt Club is the coolest new service out of California. If you're looking to hire top executives out of America, email me. I will connect you with them personally, and you will get the best talent in the U.S. And then Vinga is the top law firm in the Nordics, as everybody knows. And we thank them for being a partner. So with that, I'm going to turn to our good friend Bjorn. Bjorn, are you there?
I am definitely here.
Good. And so you reached out to me kind of over New Year's, as we tend to say merry, the happy holidays each year as we do. And you had the bright idea to do this Impact themed special session for our 8th anniversary. And what led you to that?
Well, thank you, Tyler. That is actually correct, though I reached out somewhat earlier, but that doesn't matter. And I thought it was about time to have a climate solution special. And you responded positively, so here we are. So I would like to contextualize this meeting. And I do this against the background of currently being active with the Executive Office of the United Nations Secretary General, where we are driving a new initiative which is partnering with family offices worldwide, where we specifically focus on fighting pandemics, climate change, and biodiversity depletion. And I have good news and I have bad news for you. And let's start with the bad news. Tyler, if you will show a few slides of mine.
Yep. I think I have the bad news slide up there now.
Great. So this will just be a few slides contextualizing where we're currently at. So as recent as last week, NASA issued a new report on the planet's, as they call it, man-made fever. And NASA further reported on a horrifying trend towards global overheating. I take this slowly because it's almost hard to take in. We have seen the world's 7 hottest years on record occurring since 2014. The 10 warmest years all took place in the last 15 years. And we've seen as many as 44 consecutive years with global temperatures above the 20th century average. And I ask you to go to the next slide. Ready?
Yep.
Yeah, and also as recent as last week, an international scientist group consisting of Stanford and many others, they presented their findings and what they had been reviewing, and this is of importance, as many as 150 recent scientific studies on our world environmental challenges. So this is a sort of an aggregated thing. And since this is just a short intervention here, I would like to highlight 2 things. One, the sort of the umbrella paragraph for their findings is that the conclusion is that the state of our civilization is more dire and dangerous than what is generally understood. And this is summarized in turn very well in one quote, which you have on the slide and which I will read out loud for you. The loss of biodiversity and accelerating climate change in the coming decades, coupled with ignorance and inaction, is threatening the survival of all species, including our very own. And I repeat, ignorance and inaction is threatening the survival of all species, including that of our own. This is almost, most people's views, impossible to take in. It's such an abstract. It's hard to internalize the gravity of the situation. But for those who would follow this, which I have and many of you, for decades, it's getting more and more dangerous. That is definitely the conclusion. So,
okay, Bjorn, what's the good news?
Yes, exactly. Where are the good news then? So I picked out one stats from Deutsche Bank, official report of theirs, September 2019, which may not have made the breaking the world news, but still, it's a quite astonishing statement of theirs, fact-based, of course. So according to Deutsche, ESG investments that most of you are active on has passed a tipping point, and climate mitigation will soon become a normal part of doing business. That's the good news. And the projection is that ESG investments are expected to pass the US 100 trillion mark 2030. And why is this? I single out 3 factors from the report. First, that stock market returns, which is empirically evidenced, and customer purchase habits, they favor attention to climate change. Further, government regulations on the issue are continue to increase, and companies that do not listen, quote unquote, will be left behind. So since this were a lot of statistics and hard maybe to remember it all, I also introduced a 4th slide, Tyler, which is alluding to what you said when you many years ago organized the Impact Solutions gathering at the Stockholm Tech Fest, where, as I recall, you said that the impact investors, they were sitting at the children's table. So given what we now have seen, it's, I think, reasonable to ESG and impact investors will no longer have to sit at the children's table. And let me also close with that this was reinforced by now, as we started this meeting, our now new president, Joe Biden's $2 trillion climate plan, which is reducing fossil fuel and creating jobs. So with that said, friends, let's go to work. We have an important mission.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
So I got thanks to your help and Ingmar from We Don't Have Time, we put together a very nice group of passionate people who have a passion for precisely this. And back on the Joe Biden point, it's great that he's already, his first order of business is to get back into the Paris Agreement, which is great to see. So I welcome all of our guests for today. And the first question for each of you is, what are you looking for and what aren't you looking for? And Susanne, I'll start with you with the Norrsken. Could you summarize kind of nicely for everybody what you are and are not looking for in terms of the investments you're doing there?
Well, hopefully I'll give it a go anyway. Norrsken is today a 100 million euro fund where we look at impact. We look for impact tech companies. So some kind of tech components, but otherwise we are impact agnostic, I would say. So as long as it's kind of measurable towards one of the SDGs, basically it can be a Norrsken investment. We invest early stage, so normally a seed Series A kind of level, 5 million SEK and upwards, so $500,000. Obviously, climate is something that we feel very much for, so love those kind of startups. But again, it can be impact in any dimension as long as it's measurable and significant. So
what kind of pitches do you get that you are turning away, that there's some kind of misunderstanding as it comes to impact? Is there a particular group of a theme of entrepreneurs who don't seem to understand this point?
No, sometimes it's misunderstood, but I feel that happens less and less. Sometimes it's misunderstood that impact investing means just doing good and not actually making good investments. And we're extremely keen to also do good investments. So we need to find companies that we think will grow both turnover and profitability and become potential unicorns, basically.
I got it. So you might get, you probably do get a good amount of people pitching who have a great idea that will help the planet in some way, but there just isn't really a business model around it necessarily. And
we used to get a few. I feel that kind of misunderstanding about what impact investing is disappearing more and more as the big money now is moving into impact. But that was it's important that it's a company with a viable and potentially very successful business model that is scalable. So.
And how big are your funds?
100 million euros or dollars, whatever, in total. So we have 24 investments now, and plenty of room for more.
Right. And Jan, I think most people know you historically from co-founding the EQT, and then you kind of jumped into doing your own Trill. I guess this is purely out of your own feeling of urgency for where things stand today?
Well, it's a combination, of course, an urgency, and I think the world needs a completely different perspective, and I think we need to open our eyes to that investing capital privately into good stuff is very, very important. And many people, of course, do good lifestyle choices. They eat plant-based food, they cut out some air traveling, and they park their car and go by train, and they do their recycling. But if you do all those things combined, compared to taking all your pension money and investing it into an ESG-focused fund versus an index fund, the impact of CO2 emission is 25 times on the investment decision burden and all the lifestyle decisions. And of course, the reason for that is that for most Scandinavians, the most biggest asset that they do have is their pension capital. And most people don't really engage in that. So if we steer that into good investing, not only will I believe we will have great financial returns, because I believe sustainability is absolutely necessary and a mega trend. So you will have positive impact and you will have good financial returns on that. But unfortunately, most people are not aware and don't push the pressure on the people managing their pension money.
What can you say about, in terms of your sweet spot of what you're looking for? Kind of the same question to Susanna and Norrsken.
Well, of course, Norrsken and Susanna, they are doing more venture-like businesses. We are doing more buyout-like businesses. We can buy those businesses. We're also impact agnostic to what we do, so we're pretty broad. But we want to make a difference, and we can buy not only businesses that are in their business model doing obviously good stuff for people and planet and society, but also mainstream companies where we can actually change direction and make a positive impact, because we're in such an enormous hurry that unfortunately even revolutionary deep impact companies will not be enough to save us. We got to get the mainstream companies change focus, and they will have to, and the consumers will lead that revolution, and it will be an enormous business opportunity. And unfortunately, I've lost faith in that politicians or regulators, of course, will take the lead. It'll be consumer driven and be the young generation that be leading it, but it's happening now, and it's an enormous business opportunity.
Yeah, well, I think I personally thank you, and I hope more and more people in our tech industry join me, as Marco certainly has. I think it's fantastic. Marco as well with NOAA Advisors didn't start off like Norrsken as an impact driven initiative, but it seems like that's becoming more the case these days. Marco, could you explain?
Well, trying to. We have to see. I got first aware of non-financial matter when I got criticized of having too many men on my stage. And I kind of didn't understand the world anymore. I said, hey, hold on, I'm here bringing you the best internet companies of Europe. It's not my problem if they're male or female. But then the Twitter and the Facebook and everyone kind of went very hard at us. And it was a big learning. And it's really started with that, because you kind of start becoming sensitive of things which you haven't been challenged before. Like I grew up in a household where garbage separation was not something I learned. It was kind of, I'm a bit older, I'm 46. So through the female issue, I got to sustainability. Then I went into politics. I didn't understand why people don't vote online. Everything is digital. I just looked up the Just Giving report from the US. So we give in America $420 billion to charities, but 10% only online. So it seems to be a disconnect versus other payment digital sectors. So I'm fascinated to digitize our nonprofit sector and make it profitable. And profitable means actually achieving what they are up for. And there are 100,000 NGOs. I'm very happy that we talked earlier about biodiversity. Björn said a few things, which is an embarrassment, and it's so bad that nobody talks about it. We lost 90% of our tigers, elephants, rhinos, and apparently it's okay. Well, it's not. So I started to save the animals in March in COVID, and I noticed that I can't save the animals because the land they reside on is unfortunately run by criminals, mostly politicians in Africa. So then I went to the forest to get the forest safe, and I learned about REDD+. Ingmar and I met 1.5 years ago. So yes, sustainability is the new digital, and we are going to do a new event in Zurich this year, hopefully in October, where I bring in every company has to be for profit. I don't accept initiatives which are not for profit. If they're not for profit, they're not real. They're just like a hobby, or they're like an activity, I do something, right? And because it's not profit, you don't need to judge me. And this mentality, sorry, frankly, it sucks. So when 92.5% of the raised capital to save the animals stays in the admin of the operation, and they hire consultants and they travel and they go to conferences, I say, well, that's okay. But at some point we have to say it doesn't work anymore. And forest, the same thing. We chopped off more forests like never before in 2020, and nobody really talks about it. So we need ESG data, which tells us accountability, like who actually decided that we can sell this rainforest where the orangutans live. If we don't have accountability, we don't have behavioral change. So I'm crawling the web. I have 500 data sources, and I give a lot of stuff to Ingmar. One project, one of my favorites, we're crawling Amazon, and we know the plastic sales by SKU. And these are 500 million SKUs. So then we aggregate it up to brands, retailers, manufacturers, and we have a Chrome extension, which we are launching. So before you click, you actually get detailed supply chain information. You know actually what real cost the product you're about to purchase has to the world. And I don't like initiatives because there are too many. Björn, you mentioned about your initiative. You didn't even tell us the name of the family office. Is there a name? Can we research it? Because every philanthrope, every government comes up with their own new things. And the really shameful fact is that most people don't like to talk. I try to dial into every call I get invited to, even if I'm sometimes a little rude, because we don't have time. And I'm just telling you one thing. We need a platform, and we don't have time. For climate change is the platform to back. And all my efforts on that environment and climate KPI, it's KPIs. We have to collect KPIs. We'll go to Ingmar of We Don't Have Time. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, we'll get to Ingmar in a bit. Klaus, could you share kind of, I think it's really interesting, Danske Bank, and we first connected a couple months or so ago because of your Impact Accelerator, which I was very fortunate to watch one of your demo days and was very, very impressed, as I said earlier. And I'm looking forward to the next one and helping make that one even as good as it can be. I'm confident they'll continue to get better and better. What it's interesting to me is you're really one of the first kind of the banks and to take this on. And when I first heard of it, I think I, like anybody else, might be a little skeptical that you're just doing this for kind of, some kind of out of the marketing department. Somebody in the marketing department, has sustainability as, their favorite topic. And then after getting to talk to you and see the startups and see what you're doing, it's not that at all. It's a very sincere effort. But I wanted to hear in your own words kind of how you see it.
Thanks, Tyler. I run a team called Growth and Impact in Danske Bank. And we've been doing this since 2015. And the purpose is to help the Nordic startups to scale their business, but also to improve and increase their positive impact. Our definition of impact startup is that if you remove the impact, then you remove the business. And that then of course says that it has to be at the core of the business. We are impact agnostic, as we have heard from the other partners today as well, using the SDGs as a reference, leaning more and more to what we call green growth startups. So startups trying to deal with the climate issues that we also talking about today. And the reason is that we see that is the area where we have the best odds of seeing companies being able to scale. If you are more looking at the most social elements, you can definitely have deep impact on the people you help, but it's difficult for you to scale your business.
And how do you define and how do you measure impact?
So this is back, I guess, to the theory of change. So you can do a lot of actions and then you have some outputs and then long-term impact. I guess the impact we are talking about here is eventually at some point of time, I would hope that more and more people would be having access to schools, for example, or that we would deal with poverty. But the type of outputs that we can help startups with is of course not to immediately go into bringing people into schools or something like that. Just two inputs for the further discussions. We do have a platform called plusimpact.io. I believe that is the biggest index in the Nordics of impact startups. So go and have a look. The program that Tyler just talked about, where the next batch will be about circular economy within agri-food.
Cool. I'm going to circle back around through the investors again, and I would like to know what is the best advice that you have for startups today in 2021 who might be pitching you, given that we have 3 startups who are going to be pitching you shortly, but we'll go back to Susanna.
Best advice, I don't know. Personally, I feel that the climate issue obviously is very urgent. And I think if you have a business that is focused on taking out CO2 of the value chains of traditional companies as well, I agree with what Jan was saying, that we don't only need startups to do the right thing, we need the big companies to do that as well. But I think there's a huge opportunity out there now for startups helping the bigger companies to take out CO2 out of the value chains. So if you have a startup in that space, I think that's super interesting. And or if you have an idea, just kind of go for it, because I think this will happen now. The big money is moving into impact, so you have a huge opportunity to raise, even if you need significant capital to deliver on your idea. I think this is actually the time to do it. And if you're on the idea stage, I guess I would like to advertise Norrsken's new accelerator that we launched. I'm going to be an advisor in it myself, and I think there's some amazing people tied to the program, unicorn founders like you mentioned, Tyler.
Yeah. I have to say that might be the best gathering of mentors I've seen of any. I'm even counting Y Combinator and the best, programs in Silicon Valley. Like, you've truly done a fantastic job with this.
I think it's super impressive what the team has done. And I think if you're more on the idea stage and you have something in the climate area, or food tech is of particular interest as well, just kind of go for it, apply, and make sure you then scale rapidly. Be brave. This is the time to do it, because there's a heap of money out there looking for these kind of investments.
Cool. Jan, what do you feel is the big opportunity in 2021, and in general, your message for the innovators?
But I do, of course, think that environmental investment generally will be quite the focus. I think the Biden thing that is happening as we speak is sort of just a fantastic game changer. I think more and more data, thanks to people like Ingmar, is coming out. And I think we all need data. And it's important that we can now get corporates to get into describing what value do they provide net to society, people, and planet. And I think that we got to raise the bar for all the corporates to actually explain to us, and we got to measure it, and they got to get credibility. And I think here we can use tech, like Ingmar says, that we are all consumers, and we can actually rate the corporates and force them to change and force them to declare how they actually help people and planet. Now, I think that is extremely urgent, and tools like Ingmar's is just incredibly valuable. And that, I think, is the biggest opportunity for this year. I do believe we have also a lot of social issues sort of associated with COVID. This will be a very difficult time for Europe and the world, frankly. And unfortunately, I don't think will be over tomorrow. But from a business opportunity perspective, I think environment is the focus.
I wanted to follow up on a question with you. How do we get more of your colleagues, in the later stage, in the buyouts, taking a similar approach that you have? Or is that inevitable that that's going to happen? Or if not, how do we help provoke it?
I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen, but it's a race against time, as we all know. So therefore, it's important that people speak up, and of course that the consumers speak up, and of course that the investors with the large pools of capital do act upon it, because it's a great thing that sort of we have all this venture funding now for startups, and that is of course very good. But we gotta get the big global asset allocators to also dive capital into them in size. Otherwise, there's no way to solve the challenges, because with charity or even state money or NGOs, that won't make it. We got to get all the private institutions to move with size. And I think the only people that can do that is, of course, the consumers, it's the electorate, and the investors will follow. And I personally, I get affected by my kids, because, my 10-year-old is telling me things that I shouldn't be doing. And I think that's a wake-up call. I'm an optimist that with new technology, you can get out to the young generation and they will push their parents. I sometimes say I'm an optimist. I'm a Fortnite optimist. I'm upset with my son playing too much Fortnite. But then I think about that in 18 months, they got out to every single 10-year-old globally, and they made $2.5 billion in profit. Can you imagine a gaming company coming up with the survivor on the planet leading the best way instead of everybody shooting each other? And that could be done tomorrow. That's an enormous tips and business opportunity for you. But with tech, we can get out to the kids globally, and then can they pressure their parents?
Maybe, or at worst case, we could, if we could run adverts inside of the apps that the kids are using. If we could target the children of the big fund managers and educate the kids on the importance of this issue so that they can pass it on to their parents. Marco, what do you think? What's the the strategy going forward?
No, I just wanted to throw, I love numbers. I used to work for Lehman Brothers many years, so I like to always size and dice it. So when I met Ingmar, I said, okay, how big is your market? And he's like, well, it's saving the world. It might be very big. I said, yeah, but financial people, they like to know market sizes. And so we analyzed the ESG data market, which is the busiest M&A industry you will have ever looked at. Everyone is buying everyone because the big professionals, they know ESG is going to be big. So that industry pays currently to the raters, corporates and investors around $1 billion a year on ESG data, collecting the data and providing it to suppliers and shareholders and other corporates. And you want to know what people can see about you. What is that market facing to consumers? When you want to apply for a job and you want to know, is this company sustainable? Or when you want to buy something on Amazon, you want to know, does it have a fair origin? Like the trust pilot of consumer guidance on sustainability. Like, do I do something good? How much packaging is in this? So I'm excited about connecting the dots and going to the B2B rating guys and putting it on our platform. So I think we have to create our own reality as consumers. And that means we have to send Twitter messages. We have to post on, you said earlier, we have now 200 billion in sustainable assets. I put last weekend on LinkedIn that these 200 billion are actually 0.1% of the 10 trillion we have. So if only that little 0.1 is sustainable, it sounds big as 200 billion, but the overall world is unfortunately 1,000 times the size of the ESG funds. It is a hoax, right? It's believing in Santa Claus. There is no ESG at the moment. And we have to bang that point home, and we don't have time. We'll be that B2C ESG communication platform, and we will scale it as much as we can through influencers all over the world, like the same thing we did with Noah to support the European digital ecosystem. But the digital guys, they're fine. They made so much money in COVID. They're 4 years ahead of their business plans. Now it's actually making sure that all the packaging we create in COVID when we ordered our food home is going to be replaced by ecological packaging.
I love the summarization of this around that idea of like a trust pilot for impact, as you kind of allude to, whether it's the Chrome-based browser extension, which it seems genius in itself, and 10 other ways in a smartphone app or whatever else. Klaus, is this secretly, can you confess that is this what's actually driving Danske Bank's impact initiatives, is that you're sensing preemptively that consumers are going to start choosing their bank based on which one's the greenest because there's going to be an app like the Trust Pilot for sustainability or whatnot?
No, that's not what drives at least my ambitions in this. We try to convince startups to have an intent that solves a bigger challenge, represented, for example, with the SDGs, and then encourage them to build businesses solving that. I think that is good for us. It's good for them. It's good for the world. There's a lot of tailwind.
Oh, I got you. As you genuinely, you're more concerned about them, focusing on them, and you want to inspire and encourage them. I think that's a great thing. I think the dividends of that will come back, hopefully in some way that people become more aware that this is a genuine initiative that Danske Bank is supporting.
Of course, parts of our work here is also commercial focus. So we believe that if we help these companies to scale, then they would prefer doing their banking with us, and then it's also a win for us. So I think we have an opportunity here where it's not about polarizing or someone will win and others will lose. If we ensure that everyone is working sincerely on solving problems that is relevant, and we combine our efforts to help them to solve it and scale, then I think we all will win.
Yeah, interesting that the theme this time is, in your case, the agri-food. It seems like, at least in the Nordic, being American and living in Asia as I do, the Nordic seems to have a particular strength in the food part of the sustainability. Any thought about why, and particularly Sweden and Denmark? In any sense, am I correct in assuming that? And if so, why do you think that is?
Well, all the Nordic countries have had a long tradition of being farmers. I guess that's one element to it. Then we also have, I think lately we have seen a lot of chefs and restaurants experimenting on food. That definitely also helps. So we are a society looking into new ways of eating and our diet. So we definitely can see a strong pipeline of startups within this sector coming from the Nordics. Of course, making it easier for us to select ones for the program. And I do that. Norrsken did one similar food tech acceleration program last year with great success. So
cool. I want to go one more time through the investors, and this time I want to ask, what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of, and what are you most embarrassed by? You can do both or one. You can pick one or both. Susanna, and I realize this is an unscripted format that most people are not used to in the Nordics, but is it to let the audience in on kind of what are some of the good things and maybe some of the learnings that you've had with Norrsken?
Now, one thing I'm proud of on a slightly personal level, I guess, was coming out of private equity investing, where I spent about 14, 15 years. I felt that I was convinced that this was an opportunity when we started off the work with the first Norrsken fund about 4.5 years ago. So I was convinced that kind of doing good business was the future. And I must say these 4 years have, so far anyway, proven me right. And I certainly believe that profitable and profit-generating companies have to be part of the solution. It's the only way we can do this. So definitely something I'm proud of. And I think, again, in this space is where we'll see some of the most interesting companies come forward. I also, apart from being a senior advisor at Norrsken, I work with Northvolt, for instance, which is a clear example of, I've been working with them for 4 years. And 4 years ago, there were plenty of questions asked whether this was actually the future. Today, there's none of those questions are still there because it's a given that this is the future. We have a lot to deliver on, but surely the kind of big capital is flowing into these opportunities, and it's good business, and it's also doing good.
Yeah, I think Northvolt might be the best example in Europe at this point, maybe even globally, about the business model around sustainability and the economics of that.
Yeah, I think, again, when I started working with Northvolt 4 years ago, green batteries, it was like, batteries, really? And green batteries, is that really necessary? And now that question is just non-existent. Everyone understands why green batteries just has to be the future.
Yeah. Great. And nothing embarrassing to share? I won't push you on that.
Plenty of embarrassing stuff, but I guess that's...
Save that for the next time.
Having worked with investments for a long time, you also make some really bad bets, but I certainly believe that with impact investing, you're kind of working with the trends rather than against them. And I guess I've done the opposite in the past sometimes, which has been less successful.
Okay. Jan, to you, what are you most proud of or most embarrassed by at this point?
Well, I feel good about the fact that sometimes in life I've taken some relatively brave decisions and I really jumped off ship, sort of. Although I'm a guy that I hate unforced errors in life, and I'm rather analytical, so I don't like to do spontaneous thing. But when I left a multinational company career after 10 years to be part of the team that started EQT back in the days. And now leaving a very, very established platform to start an impact investing organization from scratch, which is perhaps not typical for guys like me. I'm a little bit proud that sometimes I reflected upon life and say, is this what I want? And is this where I can actually contribute most? And then actually completely change path. And that I'm pretty proud of. And of course, I'm a bit embarrassed of that, particularly on this journey, that I didn't realize earlier the biodiversity urgency, and of course the environmental urgency. I think my eyes should have been open much earlier to that issue that I feel ashamed about.
That's a great answer on the embarrassing side. Marco, you have thoughts on this one? And by the way, I think you should be very proud of the events that you've put on over the years now, and it's a shame that COVID.
Also, I made some bad people richer.
Yeah.
What is that to be proud of?
That might
right?
come with the territory.
So interesting. Noah, the name Noah stands for no assholes here, right? And actually, yesterday I had a big breakdown on one of the longest relationship I ever had in my life with a VC who didn't disclose a competitive investment when my client pitched, so it wasn't a rosy day. No, I'm really tired. I feel embarrassed about shouting at my colleagues. I think that's the biggest embarrassment. But then I think it was always very much needed. But I feel embarrassed that I didn't, it's very interesting when you shout at people. It's not that I'm shouting all the time, but 90% actually don't react well, but 10% do react very well. But that's the biggest embarrassment. What am I proud of? Yeah. I'm proud of, exactly. I'm like Jan, that I'm not ignorant, blind, and spoiled enough to not change. And I'm proud enough that I'm not scared to get a no, or that I'm telling Thomas Bubel from AXA, you're fake. Your biodiversity speeches at the United Nations are actually a joke. And when I call your office and I reach out to you to collaborate because you are a NOAA speaker and you don't take the call, I'm not shy like a little schoolboy going home. I will go on and on and on until they give accountability for their actions. Because what's not okay is to accept that the IUCN or the CITES or Interpol are doing their dirty selling the animals game in Africa, and they think for us it's okay. No, it's not. So what we need is like what really drives me, and I'm proud of, is that we are going to get the truth. Like we will find the truth of climate change through KPIs. And if we measure human behavior in good and bad and do it numbers, no judgment, just numbers. You have to do everyone the same way. No like he this and she that. I think then I'm happy, right? And that's what we are working on. And there's a gigantic project here with many people and very excited about that. So I'm proud and happy and ashamed at the same time. But we are all here for a very big task. So sometimes you have to be rude and tough, and at the end, always hug yourself again and make up. That's how you go on. Everybody can be a good person from tomorrow onwards. So even me.
I love the point that you're making around once the data is there, it's no longer really an argument because it becomes very crystal clear. In the example that you give, if you have somebody on stage somewhere in the UN or wherever, I mean, we've all seen it many, many times. Some company talking very nicely about, the
220 companies who were in Paris to decide on REDD+, not one of them has financed the REDD+ project. Not one. And why is that? The land registry are not digitized. There's no database knowing who can run a REDD+. It takes 6 years to certify. So the whole infrastructure of actually saving the forest doesn't exist. But the people in the nice suits at these big conventions, they talk about it, then they go home and they feel like important. But nobody's checking the follow through of regulations, not implemented.
Right.
It's the same with the European Union. It takes 2 years to get from Brussels to implementation, and we don't have that time.
Yeah.
Do we have still time here to go on, or you're going to the real entrepreneurs?
Yeah, now we're going to get to the real entrepreneurs, but I just have to say this is just a really important point. It is up to the entrepreneurs to bring that sort of API, KPI, data-driven stuff, so that the companies who are up on stage singing a good song, we can kind of ignore the song and let's look at the data and see which company is
changing the incentives. It's changing the incentive system.
Yeah.
If we rate ESG data, entrepreneurs will behave differently. I'm working for investing.com, one of my longest and biggest clients. So we are the number one, like 250 million users checking share prices. So I'm trying to get for our stock quotes, also the ESG ratings in there, just to build up the perception, the data, finance and environment, the cost for environment and the financial return have to be linked. It's like a yin yang, and you cannot invest in the palm oil business and then expect that it's fine because you kind of just deployed to the world of important CO2 absorption capacity. We have to connect the dots with data. And that's why Ingmar and we clicked so well, because he has exactly the same mentality. So now I didn't really talk about what I'm proud of and just squeezed in some message, but there's so much to talk about.
True. Klaus, you get to clean up on this one. Anything particularly proud or embarrassing thus far in your journey?
I'll just answer by saying one learning that I found important by working with the startup ecosystem is representing a big company like I do. It's very often you have an inside-out approach to things, believing that you know everything. What I have learned in the startup ecosystem is that you can come much further if you are open-minded and work with partners. And that's why we, for example, work with WeWork Labs and RISE and Sweden Food Tech in the acceleration program. So that has been a great learning for me, at least, and I believe also it has proven to work for the startups that we work with.
Cool. So with that, let's turn to our innovators who have themselves come up with some impressive solutions to hopefully make the world a better place. First up is Ingmar from We Don't Have Time. Ingmar, are you there?
I'm here. Hi.
Hey. It looks like you have the exact amount of time left on the screen next to you.
Yeah, my organization's name is We Don't Have Time, and it's kind of stressful. You need to achieve a lot of things in a short time period to live up with that name. But what we mean with We Don't Have Time is actually not to be pessimistic. We mean the opposite. We don't have time to wait. We need to act. And my background is that I'm not an environmentalist or anything like that. My background is actually that I've been an entrepreneur in the finance industry my whole life. I helped a lot of entrepreneurs. I hosted a lot of events similar to you are doing now. And that was quite profitable business. But one thing, big life moment actually made me to think in longer time period. And that was actually 8 years ago when I became a father myself. So my daughter is 8 years old today, and that made me think of the future. And I started to learn about the climate crisis. And I got so shocked because people still don't get it, but they didn't even be aware of it back then. It's a crisis, and it's so severe, it's so acute. We need to act on it. And people were not just talking about it, they were just ignoring it. And what was the tipping point that made me to exit my old company and dedicate my career to try to do something for this was actually 4 years ago when Donald Trump became president of the United States. It became so obvious for me that our world leaders are not going to act on this crisis. They will not solve it for us. So I believe every one of us needs to do our part. We need to solve this. And the best way to connect people all around the world that wants to solve it and have them to work together is doing it with the help of tech, with information technology. So what We Don't Have Time is that we have built the world's largest social network for climate action. And I'm going to show you now the first film we presented for our investors 3 years ago when this was only an idea. And today we have realized it and we are on a good way of scaling it up and doing a lot of impact. But I start with showing you the concept that we presented 3 years ago by showing this short film here.
We are running out of time. Right now, carbon dioxide emissions are being released at a staggering rate. Climate change will soon be self-fulfilling and unstoppable. The ice in the Arctic will no longer deflect sunlight, and the Siberian tundra is melting while releasing enormous quantities of methane gas into the atmosphere. We cannot turn the clock back. We are growing closer at an unprecedented speed to the point of no return. But there is still time to stop the emissions. So why do we not introduce a carbon dioxide tax now? Why is is it we are not shifting to 100% renewable energies? How is it that nothing is being done? We have a solution. Right now, as we speak, we are building a social network, an arena where you and millions of people around the world will be able to watch who is really doing something to put an end to the climate crisis. An arena where you can look into what your politicians and business leaders are doing about climate change. Do they in fact take it seriously? Are they doing their job? Love bomb the ones in power that are actively looking for solutions, and climate bomb the ones that must do more. Nobody likes a bad rating. Nobody wants to be held accountable for the climate crisis. When the pressure is felt by the people in power, they will no longer be able to deny, mislead, or hide. They will have to change their ways. This is a time when together we can solve this crisis, a time of great change. We are working round the clock to create this social network, but you don't have to wait for us. At WeDon'tHaveTime.org, you can already send climate bombs, love bombs, and messages to chosen world leaders through social media. Remember, together we have the power, but we are running out of time.
So the reason why I have a countdown here is that in order to be in line with the Paris Agreement, to stay under 1.5 degrees, we need to halve the barge emission before the year 2030. And that's a mindset. It was 8 years ago I started to look into it. And now we only have 8 years left to actually solve it. And what I believe is needed to solve it is that we have so many solutions out there. We have so many entrepreneurs doing a lot of solutions on different problems, what we also have been speaking about here today. But there's no platform that connect those and where people could rate and give reviews to those companies, businesses, and leaders that are doing the right thing. So we're focused on the solutions, and we're giving credit our members, not ourselves. We have built a platform. Our members, exactly like Trustpilot, how we built, where our members could give climate love to the good action and climate warning to the bad action. And this is a rating system, and we see that it works. So today we also work together with a large social media platform, such as Twitter is actually our partner that is helping us to reach millions of people. So right now we are having a fundraise where we're inviting more investors to join this, and together with me and Marcus, also one of our lead investors, we're going to take this further and scale up our business and have a great impact on the whole world. And what is so cool, already today, world leaders are actually answering and engaged in a climate dialogue. We have had everything from the president of Brazil answering criticism on our platform directly to our members, or an environment minister of Norway, or large corporate leaders like Jeff Bezos has engaged in a climate dialogue on our platform. So our platform is not about shaming companies. It's about having a dialogue for change, because we can't just trust the new entrepreneurs to come with all the solutions, because we don't have time for that. We need to change the big business that already has all the business and have them to change the business and go sustainable. And we also need to give them a lot of ideas. So that's why you also could give away business ideas to big players like IKEA and have them to implement it. And we actually have some great examples that we have people on our platform that have got job assignments because they have provided great ideas to large corporations. It's a different mindset. We can't compete anymore. We need to be winners, all of us. And the only way forward is to work together. And the only way to achieve that is with technology. And Tyler, you said something really important here as well, because I often got questions from a lot of investors like, why are you building our own platform? It's cost a lot of money, and it's really difficult to have people to join a new platform. The reason for that is that big tech is politics. I mean, if you're doing something that they don't like, they will just shut you down. And they have already shut us down. YouTube shut down our live stream in the middle of Christiana Figueres, the chairwoman of the Paris Agreement, in the middle of her speech. And Facebook has shut down all our ads the day after we launched our platform. So in order, if you want to change the world, you can't be dependent on someone else with a different agenda.
Why do you think you got shut down?
I mean, fossil fuel interests, they are really powerful. And I mean, you talked about Russia. Do you know what's powering the Russia economy?
Yeah, oil, of course.
I've been on Russia state television. They are trolling me, producing false news with my name on prime time because they don't like that I helped Greta Thunberg. That is just one example. So it's a lot of interest out there that are doing everything they can to make us slow down the change because they have so much interest in the profitability of it.
Can you please just describe the product? I didn't really understand it. So it's like or dislike. Is it basically rating the companies based on people's emotions, or do you have some actual data on? I'm thinking.
No.
Assumptions of how much a company. I mean, the footprint from a company could differ pretty much from what it actually is. I mean, we have seen several green companies that when you look into the data actually isn't that green.
Yeah, our platform is exactly like TripAdvisor. It's not about if you have a scientific good bed or if the food is nutritious. It's about, do you think it tastes good? Did you have a good night's sleep? Was it a good service? And you can, of course, have an opinion on this. And journalists and analyze firms like eSki Data.
But I mean, I think it's good to have a platform for focusing on the environment. And I mean, especially if you can connect people that are working with this to have a platform to discuss. But I don't really see what value will it bring to the world if people are rating it based on.
Do you want a board leader or a corporate leader to change behavior and do more for the climate?
Yes.
Yes. So what you could do on our platform, I'm just showing you here very quickly. For instance, we have a large investor that is doing a lot of great stuff, BlackRock. They are communicating that they are doing a lot of impact investment. But in the reality, they are not acting as good as they're talking. And there's a lot of information out there about that. And what people on our platform are doing is that they give reviews to BlackRock, for instance. And as you can see here, 49% is about they doing something good. And they are doing something good. But on the same thing, they're also doing a lot of bad stuff. And they need to be focused. So this is a platform where you can focus on the good action and on the bad action. And it's not about just giving the rating and reviews. It's also about encouraging the reception to answer the criticism and hopefully change. So it's making everything transparent about how people are on businesses.
Is the voting really I mean, have you challenged? Is the voting really the best way of doing it? I'm thinking, yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean,
what you just. Sorry to interrupt, but it looked like what you just showed. It looked like a bit of sort of a LinkedIn, or like you said, like a TripAdvisor but more in tune with accountability around sustainability, both encouraging and accountability. And I guess there's, and that's great for the corporate side. I'm wondering, is there also something related to the solutions? And highlighting good solutions and maybe even connecting good solutions with the people who need to connect with them.
Yeah, I mean, our most important impact is actually not just the criticism, it's much more the solutions. And there's so many solutions out there, but people are not aware about them. So what is happening on our platform is that people are sharing those solutions to others. So people are aware about them. And we have a great examples where we are sharing everything from policies like Norway. They have been incredibly successful of having policies for electric cars. Over 50% of the electric cars today are sold in Norway. That's because they have these clever rules about how they have set everything up. And other world leaders are not aware about that. So our platform helps to share that successful solutions.
Well, what's the likelihood of
sharing the solutions so we will influence everyone to take action? Because if 1,000 companies do everything right, I mean, it's great that we have impact investors that are investing in the companies that are doing the right stuff. But if only they are doing it, we will not survive. We will not make it. We must have everyone going for the action. And the only way of doing that is to share the solution and influence the world and have others to follow. Your action doesn't count if you can't have others to follow. That is true with your individual actions. but it's also true if you're a company. If you're like IKEA, for instance, you have 1 billion customers. The most important action IKEA could do is actually to talk with their customers, because that will influence the world to act on the climate crisis. But IKEA can't talk with their customers if they don't walk the talk. So everyone needs to walk the talk and influence the world to take action. And there is almost no one in this space taking a holistic approach on the climate crisis. Everyone is just focusing on like food. We need to have low emission food, like plant-based food. That's great. We need to have electric cars. We need to have battery energy storage. Also great. But we need to change the whole system. And I firmly believe that if we change the system so that the companies that are doing the good stuff, that are doing climate action, and also communicating, are successful of influencing others to engage in that and share that, that will lead the change. I'm totally convinced of that. And we have succeeded already with so much impact. I mean, I'm really proud. Tyler asked the investors what they are proud of. And I'm really proud that I don't need to talk about the problem anymore. People are aware about the problem. And our network has played a crucial role in sharing that awareness. Because when people work together on a global level, and if you connect the right people, exactly as Tyler is doing here in the investment space, we are doing the same in the climate space. That has a great impact, and that is a driver for change. And ladies and gentlemen, we don't have time. We need to act. We will fail if we are too slow. It's so many great people here doing great stuff, but I'm sorry to say, we are failing. We are doing it too slow. Last year, we had emission cuts of 7% globally because of Corona. People are staying at home. But guess what? The carbon dioxide level increase in the atmosphere is actually exactly the same level as the year before, because we are cutting down the forest, so the nature are not absorbing the carbon as much. So we need to do so much more. And I firmly believe that the only way forward is not to focus on only the reduction. We need to focus on the action, what to do now.
So are you focused on getting more solutions into your platform, or more corporates, or both? Or what is your main focus at this point?
So our revenue stream, we're not selling an ads or anything. We work with businesses, everything from large multinational corporations that use our platform to engage their stakeholders in a climate dialogue. And we also work with startups. And we also connect those with it. We haven't done work. They're signing up to partner with us, and if we see someone that they have need of something, we could connect them with someone that has the service to provide. And what we're going to do in the future when we are scaling this is to build this digitalized, so we have this marketplace where you have the best solutions, so you really can find them, and that you can matchmake that to the companies that are in need of it.
Yeah, because that's something I believe more in that than the thumbs up and down, to be honest. But I think that is actually something that is super valuable, I'd say, matching solutions to matching problems to solutions.
Yeah.
Why don't you believe in the thumbs up and down? It sounds very interesting.
It doesn't change the world. I think that, I think it's based on feelings, people's emotion. I would say maybe if it was a little bit like flashback or that you had some real data based on it, but thumbs up or down.
But that's exactly, look, we are just starting, right? We have 30,000 users. These are the hardcore climate change people. They don't seem to be too tech savvy. So we are building this now. And what data matters? I want to get a report every Monday morning on who sold rainforest by WhatsApp. It's at the end, it's a question of who sees that thumbs down data. If you want to hire Harvard graduates, and the Harvard graduates are checking that data, and they see that maybe I shouldn't work for that oil company because all my friends are.
But it's based on emotions, right?
Yeah, but
so I can
but Tuva, here's a good reaction though. To be fair, so is Facebook. So, and to a large extent, so is LinkedIn, and certainly Instagram and TikTok.
What is not based on emotion?
Yeah, but that's their business case is based on emotion, and they're making money on emotions. I mean, if we're going to change the world, of course we're going to use emotions to have people changing the world. But I would much rather see the matching service, and I would much rather see, having some kind of grade based on actual numbers. I mean, seeing that, hey, okay, BlackRock.
So
we get the emissions data. Do you know, Tuva, you know that there's actually very, very, very few standardized sources where you get emissions data. You get a lot of data by country, but if you have a company name, how much emissions they have from a third party, there's only one source, IHS market. So alone, let me just finish. Alone getting this data to consumers.
I get your point. You don't have to finish. I get your point. But I also know, as a former hacker, I know that it's very easy to put up a little machine that is giving my company a thumbs up. I mean, it's.
Let me answer. Actually, I some way agree with you, but I haven't understood our system. Our system is not about saying that you're great, you're an idiot. It's about this action you do, this solution you have. If IKEA is launching a solution, our members are sharing about that solutions. If IKEA is doing something bad, they are talking about that specific subject. So it's not about telling people that you're good, you're bad. It's about identify solutions and problem, share that, discuss that, and make it transparent. So I think you misunderstood the system a little bit. It's not the same system as TripAdvisor. You give 1 star is bad service, 5 stars is good service. It's more complicated than that, because sustainability is not as simple as a thumb down or a thumb up.
Yeah.
So you're right, but we have actually thought about that, and this is a really short time period to explain all in detail.
Yeah.
But please sign up and test it for yourself. But I will also say that what we are in process of doing now is actually to connect all the other data about emission data, about ESG data, the analyzed form, and put up that on the same profile page so that you could compare. Are the people views on this company, and this is actually the data. So you have both. You must have the facts and the feelings. The reason why we have failed in climate is not that we don't have the facts. We have had it for 40 years. It is that the scientists, people, are really bad at communicating. They are terrible of communicating, and they're also terrible of using technology. We are awesome of communicating and awesome of using technology, and it works. But emotion is always better when facts in order to influence people. But we need to have fact-based emotions.
Yeah.
And that's very important. And a big difference between our platform and other social network is that on our platform, the conversation is not about if we have a climate crisis or not. It is about how to solve it. Yeah. And that's really big difference. We don't have time for the other debate because that is not fact-based.
On a closing point, I really liked Marco's last point about if you could make it much more concrete and clear to people who are looking to go work at a new company, students coming out of school, ranking companies so that they can find companies like Northvolt, which certainly deserves to have many more. I mean, they do have a lot of people applying, but I think they could they'll never have enough at this point. But even that alone would be a really beautiful function and feature within the network, because there's many features and functions.
The way we want it to work, and it's already doing it.
Yeah, but I mean, that is one of dozens of potentially good outcomes that will be happening regularly, as Facebook has hundreds of positive outcomes and whatnot. We could go on for hours, obviously, which is the sign
all the time.
Yeah, I think that is the sign of a really intriguing and beautiful project. Most of the wildly successful projects start in a similar fashion, where they cause a lot of debate and even controversy at times. So kudos on that.
Maybe
point.
Ingmar, you can send the presentation. We have a very detailed presentation explaining
people that want...
We're just at the beginning, you know. So.
People that want more information about this, because we have so much to say and we have so little time and we need to be polite with all the other guests. Contact me on LinkedIn, Ingmar Rensog, or mail us at info@wedon'thavetime.org, and we will send you the deck and everything. And this is a great opportunity to actually change the world with your money. And we're going to have so much adventure together, and we need to do this because we don't have time.
Tyler, can I just say something?
No, you're pitching next, right?
I know. I just want to say something that complements what Ingmar just said.
Okay.
So, because We Don't Have Time is just a fantastic platform. We did a small webinar together a couple of months ago about the future of travel and how we can turn it more green. I had anticipated 100, maybe 150 viewers. We had 16,000.
Nice.
They have created a platform where it's based on science and people are not shouting at each other. I mean, yes, you can vote up and down, but you've created a platform that is, outstanding compared to the platforms that we're used to using, where there's so much fake news and bias. So keep up the good work, guys.
Cool.
Thanks.
We're getting a
Excellent.
lot of good...
I think Chris might do your preaching next time. I think I love your passion. I love the problems you try to solve. I think maybe Chris digested the product a bit better.
Well, the pitch could be... You have a great point, Tuva, which is what Chris just said adds an incredible amount of clarity to the benefit, right? Like his case example really should be highlighted, and I'm sure you could find even better case examples.
Actually, we helped Ericsson to have 8 million viewers, so we could do much better than Chris was talking about. But I mean, I'm not here to brag. I'm here to change the world.
Yeah, that's your problem, though. But this is your problem, because good pitching, showing, what Chris did. Chris had to brag for you. I understand you're Swedish, but when you're going to be pitching non-Nordic investors,
it's the best brag when someone else brags for you.
Good enough. No, but if you want to hire Chris to fly to your pitch meetings, you can do that. But I'm just saying you could easily incorporate that yourself into the pitches. Okay.
Yes, I will. Thanks.
I think that what we see here, common over the 8 years, is that people put a lot of time describing kind of the problem space, and that is usually you need to have an understanding of that. But when it comes, for example, with Admirement, you can go in exactly and go more into detail on what your product actually is and what problem that it solves, and how it helps people in the community, or how it helps companies to work on this matter.
Just 3 really cherry-picked examples, like Chris's example. Chris's example was spot on. And no doubt there's even better examples that you just cherry-picked 3 of them, and that really highlight the product.
Now we really want to hear Chris pitch.
Now I want to hear what the hell Good Wings is, Chris.
Allow me to give you one more example, Ingmar, and you jump in here as well.
Oh, no.
Sono Motors is launching an electric vehicle with a very environmentally focused approach. Perfect. And we don't have time to match your community, our community, to promote our product. I see so much overlap of our target groups, and I feel like it wouldn't be bad marketing. It would be great, because people who use We Don't Have Time are looking for impact products. And so, just to be the second behind Chris.
Yeah.
Ingmar, 2 thumbs up.
Thanks. I need to improve my pitch, but it's really hard to explain all of what we do in a short time period. It's
good products are
and
like
you live with the product, is it? Yeah.
But that's your challenge that you got to figure out.
Check. There's no platform doing what We Don't Have Time is doing, and I guess we all agree in one thing: we may want to have a climate change consumer-facing effort, and I'm not.
Yeah, but I think that the problem was that the product wasn't really described how it actually was, and when I realized what Chris and Torsten said, it makes more clear. It makes more sense. I felt like it was only kind of a tool giving thumbs up or thumbs down to different companies or people. That won't change the world, but now I get that it was actually more.
I've heard Twitter founder pitch Twitter. No one understands those new platforms before they have scale. So, you're doing something no one had done before.
Correct.
it's super hard to explain it in a short time.
Correct. Twitter was often, the earliest conversations around Twitter were very much like this. I can assure you, I was there for them. So
they are a partner.
Yeah.
And it's not a coincidence, I could say. They contacted us, not the other way around.
Cool. I've had a conversation with the Fish Brain, Johan, who's a dear friend since before.
Oh, Fish Brain.
So my point is that the niche social networks around particular audiences are the future, because the catch-it-all with Facebook is no longer the case. Going for a social network that dives deep into particular verticals,
Yes.
like social impact, like environmental, is the future, and that's what he and I were just. He knew that before everybody. He was in the right place at the right time, and now. But
Tyler, I just on Fish Brain, it's so interesting you mentioned them, because I said to Ingmar, in order to prove the Tuvas of the world wrong, we just have to show the other social network verticals.
Yeah.
And here we have this list: Fish Brain, ResearchGate, artists, teachers, designers. There's a whole bunch of lots of different vertical social networks who all serves different user groups.
Yep.
You even have Wind Guru for surfers. So we sent this presentation out to you guys, so you find a little bit more.
I assure you that I'm not
Pitch,
new to
will
this
not take all
platform,
the time here, I think.
but
Okay.
Yeah.
it's
You're in the. I just wish this. I think the only regret is this. Wish this would have started, 4 or 5 years ago. That's the only regret. So anyway,
We did start 3 years ago, so we were ahead of everyone else in this field, and that is a big advantage, I would say.
Good wings. Your time
no,
starts.
it's not next, I think.
Good wings.
Yes.
Your time starts now.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler, for the opportunity, and hi everyone. So basically, I have a presentation that I'm going to share on the screen in a minute, but let me just start with my personal story. I've worked in sustainability for the last 20 years. I have a master's in philosophy and business, and I basically started at that time to gain interest in what is the role of the business in society, and have grown with that from human rights to anti-corruption to CSR to then sustainability, and now impact and climate. That is the hot new topic. Have grown a few businesses in that, successfully sold one, and then I started Good Wings 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I looked at an industry that was growing double digits, online travel, and I realized how little responsibility the big players were taking. And when I looked into their books, because their annual reports were publicly available, you could see that they were not, in reality, they were not travel companies. They were marketing engines. Take a company like Expedia or Priceline, who owns Booking.com, and all these guys, they control the travel space today. 70% of airline tickets and hotels are being booked on online platforms who don't own the inventory. They're basically just the middleman, the intermediary. So what they use all their money for, the revenues, is advertising. I learned that if you accumulate it, they spend $40 billion on advertising, primarily Google, TV, and so on. So having been in Impact for, at that time, 15 years, I knew that we didn't lack ideas, we didn't lack science. What we lack is money. Especially having worked with the Millennium Goals from 2000, and in 2015, we saw the SDGs replacing the Millennium Goals. And everyone like me who's worked professionally with this knew that it was very good. We now have a new vocabulary. We have a framework, the 17 global goals, but we are definitely gonna miss the funding that comes with the goals, with the goal setting. And rightfully, last year, it was estimated that only 45% of the funding needed to deliver on the goals were put on the table. So we're failing on the funding. So basically, what we want to do with Good Wings is we want to look at this industry in a new perspective. We want to try to cut down on advertising by going to market through partnerships and alternative ways and refunnel that money to climate. All right, so let me just share with you what and how we do it. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So travel and tourism accounts for 8% of global emission, or at least it did so up to Corona and COVID. And the problem is that CO2 compensating carbon credits simply isn't enough to limit global warming. What we must begin to do is to remove emissions at large scale. We have, as I'm sure you're already aware of, we have spent the last 180 years emitting a staggering 900 or 950 gigatons into the atmosphere. So what we're introducing is business travel with net zero carbon footprint. Net zero travel is when you remove the same amount or more than what was emitted with your travel. So it's not a CO2 carbon compensation scheme where we compensate your travel by helping someone else avoid emitting CO2. The typical CO2 avoidances, where you help someone, you buy carbon credits from a solar plant in India or a windmill in China. No, that is also good because it fuels, it's the finance that helps the green transition. We need the solar plants, we need the windmills, but we need to remove emissions at large scale. And that's what we're into. So if you book your hotels on Goodwings, we will calculate your total travel emissions from not only your accommodation, your hotel that we provide you with, but also your transportation. And we will then remove your total travel footprint: flight, taxi drives, Uber, hotels, even your meals.
Got it. Next slide.
So basically, what we offer, the product itself, is a platform where we have spent the last 4 years connecting to all the major hotel databases. We have 1 million hotels. We have comparable rates with major platforms, same terms and conditions. But the big difference, of course, is that if you choose to book your hotels with us as an individual or as a business, you will travel with net zero emissions. We calculated on the checkout page, we have a small data set where you can type in, well, I go from Amsterdam to New York. I take the metro to the airport, I fly, I take a cab, I stay there 3 nights, and I do everything in reverse.
Okay, let's pause. I got it. Chris, if you've seen my events ever before, me and Tuva, if you've seen any of our 100 events, you know we stop the pitch and we ask the investors, what do they think? So right now, I'm dying to know, Susanna from Norrsken, what do you think of Goodwings at this point? You haven't seen the whole pitch yet, obviously, but given what you've seen.
At this point, I'm leaning forward towards my computer because I thought it was interesting.
I did too. Good. I thought you might. I thought it was. Have you seen it before?
No, I've not seen. I've heard of Goodwings, but I've never heard this much detail. So sounds like a clear business opportunity, and I know there are many travel bookers out there. So it's a market I've looked at a little bit before in other settings. So
okay, Jan from Trill, what's going through your mind as you watch this? As Chris is pitching Goodwings here.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's just a matter of what will the cost be out to come to consumers. Because if you really can provide the same kind of quality and price, then people will go on the platform, but they need to know about it. So from a business case perspective, you need to get to that reach because hotels.com is pretty powerful.
Yeah, so basically we've been focusing and will be focusing for the next years on the business market. So what we offer is we basically turn online booking into a SaaS model. So we offer memberships for companies that starts at $39 per company per month and up to $5.99. So we have a company like Danone using our service for $5.99, and we have smaller design companies in Berlin for $39. So basically what we do is we spend all the transactional revenues, the sales commission that we get from selling you a hotel, we spend that on removing CO2 on your behalf. So you get the same hotel, same price. Individuals can go and use the platform without the membership. And basically, we only make small revenues on that. But the main revenue driver for us are the subscription payments from the companies using our service. Because if they consistently use Goodwings, we will log all their travel emissions. So their scope 1, 2, 3 reporting will be much easier. They'll save time. They will get all the removal credits, as many removal credits as they want for free, only paying the monthly subscription. And they get the CO2 certificate at the end of the year that documents that this is a company that travels net zero.
It's super cool. I say that I have a resort here. I'm calling you in today from my resort in Thailand, and we are a completely solar powered resort. All of our power is generated and water is all generated on site. I would love to have the people who book to us book through this. So I'd love to connect with you on how to do that. Very cool.
And afterwards, they can rate your resort on We Don't Have Time. So you get
But Tyler, just allow me to answer or to comment on what Jens said, because the acquisition model is key to understanding that.
Sure.
So basically, what we want to do is we want to outperform the big guys on our unit economics. We want to show that we can make more money by spending money on carbon removal, instead of, ridiculous, the same TV commercials going on and on and on just to be top of mind, so to say. So how we disrupt, how we do it, how do we get to the consumer? Well, we work with partnerships. We have a partnership with WeWork, with Impact Hub, with the largest Canadian bank. We work with them because they have an interest in showcasing Goodwings to their business clients, their business members. If we, through one partnership, can get access to 900,000 SMEs in North America without paying any money to get out there, just to be pushed out, then we can spend all the money on carbon removal.
How do you view the fact that if this really takes off, if one of the bigger established platforms, if they just offer the same option by ticking a box, will you see that as sort of improving the world, or is that sort of serious competition, or how would you view that? Because I would assume if I were a big major competitor established and there's lots of consumers, I would provide the same option.
So basically, first of all, fundamentally, as a climate entrepreneur, if Hotels.com did what we did, I would fucking love it. Really.
That's my point.
But really, but that said, just as well as I do, they're never going to do it. The last time I sold my company, I found myself in a company that was with 1,000 employees. What happened? All the innovation died. What happens right now with Booking.com or Expedia is that they're cutting down their workforce by 30-40%. They're in a state of panic now, and will be for the next 3 to 5 years, as they try to rejuvenate. So there will be no innovation. There will be no money left to do things that are out of the ordinary. So what they're doing is they're just being monitored and measured on yearly, quarterly, monthly metrics. That's what they can do. And they cannot spend the money twice yet. They cannot spend the money going to market traditionally through Google, TV, Facebook, and remove carbon at the cost that we are. We are paying up to $15 per ton to remove CO2 because we insist that it's verified. Because if it's verified, third-party verified by VCS and part of the Vera registry, we can create total transparency to our business clients. I can show the design company in Berlin that I have now calculated their travel emissions to be 200 tons at the end of 21. I have paid to remove the 200 tons. And if you click here, you can see in the Vera registry that we removed 200 carbon units on their behalf. So they will do something that is a resemblance, that smells good, but we don't have time to amplify the difference between what we're doing, which is substantially different from what they will most likely try to do.
And how are things going? I mean, what's
right now?
It's not the best. It's not the best time, but I mean, there are some traveling.
It is most definitely not the best time. We were doing up until February 20. We had 6 months of monthly growth rates of 15-20%. In March, everything collapsed.
Yeah.
Basically, what I've spent the last 10 months on is strengthening the concept and the offer. This was not the offer we had at the time of Corona. We're coming much stronger. I raised $3 million in July 20. In the middle of Corona, we raised almost 20 million krona for travel startup because we have proven at the stage, we have proof at the stage we're at now. What we're aiming to do now is to come back into 21 and increase our client base and raise roughly 5 to 10 million US in Q1 22, which will be our Series A. We've raised 7 million US so far from private people, individuals, high net worth individuals, no VC money.
Would it make sense to partner with airlines and hotels to provide them the checkbox option to, and maybe even the other big platforms, to Jan's point, the hotels.com, could you become a very easy integration like Stripe, for example, to add this carbon offset?
I mean, before COVID and worse during COVID, of course, the ability to look beyond business as usual for airlines or major platforms was quite limited, to be honest. You have one airline in the world who's actually doing something, EasyJet. Why is it EasyJet? Well, it's because they only have a European route map. So they don't have the long haul flights, which are very costly to compensate or remove the CO2 from. And what they're doing in reality is that they're just supporting a red project. That red projects are amazing, but they're not removing the CO2. So they're helping CO2 to be avoided. But what we need to do is to apply radically different business models, such as ours, where we give ourselves this dogma of having to find alternative ways to go to market. And we have proven it already. So by doing that, we can allocate vast amount of money to remove carbon removal. At the moment, reforestation, I'm sure that within 2 to 3 years, what we will be removing carbon through are direct air capture. We're already now talking to partners in Iceland and Switzerland, where they have these big machines that are literally sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere and storing it underground. The problem right now is the lack of scale and the cost inefficiency. It simply costs too much money per ton to remove it. So it's much cheaper to do it through either regenerative agriculture, enhanced weathering, or in our case, reforestation, planting trees. But we need to have it verified. We need to create the transparency. Otherwise, we will not gain the trust of the consumers or the business leaders.
Klaus, did you have any thoughts going through your mind? Or we should go on to...
No, I know Christian very well from Denmark, and I just feel sorry
you're
for him
both
that
Danish. There you go. Shit, I should have known that.
No, it's a good company, and I hope that we get travel back, and then more and more people and companies will start using their services.
And can I just say one thing? Travel will come back, and it's going to come back with full force. So we just launched last week our Travel Back Better campaign, which means that companies that sign up in 21 get all of this year for free, but they commit to using us in 22. So we had 10 companies who signed up last week in the middle of Corona. CEOs are now pledging to never go back and traveling as we did pre-COVID. We need to use this Corona time to catalyze change and not repeat the mistakes of the past. So please go to goodwings.com and sign your company up. All of you.
I will.
Awesome.
I think actually it's from that. I mean, from that sense, it's actually a great time to launch this kind of product, because I think that sure we will go back to traveling, but we will do it. I mean, this has given everybody kind of a thought of realizing the world is a little bit more vulnerable than we think. We can't live as we used to do. So I think that people. Even if it's not so much traveling during the Corona, it's still a time of reflection where I think it's good postponing.
Okay.
Super interesting. Thank you.
Yep. Torsten from Sono Motors.
Coming up. Hi, Tyler.
Hey.
Pleasure to meet you all. So my name is Torsten. I'm Sono Motors CFO. I'm very excited to be talking to you today. I'd like to start with showing you a video which perfectly, from my point of view, recaps or gives you an overview of what or who Sono Motors is. So let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Let's make...
If we were to make the most of it, creating new things and saving old ones. We wake up every morning and see our generation fight for our planet, for our future. So we listen. We started from scratch to preserve what we're running out of. The ground we stand on, the air we breathe. We don't want to hear ourselves say, "We told you so." We want to take matters into our own hands, achieve goals with our beliefs at the forefront. What is a vision worth, if not for making life livable, enjoyable, unique? For us, every single day, there's a chance to make a change.
I hope this kind of gives you an overview of who Sono Motors is. So we are an electric vehicle startup with the USP of integrating solar technology into our product. And I've also brought a small presentation to you, unless you have any questions in between. I'm happy to share you a little bit more background about our product, the science, and about our company. Give me 1 second. So maybe to go back one step, what we have in common here tonight, which I, of course, think is so important, like Ingmar talked about, like Chris talked about, is climate change is happening and we need to act. And we have the vision of a world without fossil fuels. And how we want to achieve this, how we want to contribute to this is with our solution, with the science. It's an electric vehicle with solar integration. And the good thing is, it's a car people can afford. It's a 21,400 euro net. And so in Germany, it's an equivalent of 25,500 euro, including taxes. And therefore, you get a C-segment car, which is a pretty large car for that price, with an average range battery of 255 kilometers, but with the big advantage of solar integration. So thanks to the sun, on a sunny day, the car itself charges the battery by up to 35 kilometers per day. And this is based in Munich, so of course not the sunniest country. And on an average, like over the year, we're looking at up to 16 kilometers if you look at January 1st until December 31st of additional battery range. Thanks to the price and thanks to the solar integration, we are looking at the lowest total cost of ownership and bringing the science, bringing an electric vehicle to the mass market. And the result you see, we've already received 12,800 reservation pre-orders, which is an equivalent of approximately 275 million euro in our order book as of December 31st. In addition to the solar integration, we integrated car sharing and ride pooling from the very first day of development, so that you can allow via an app if you want to share the car with your family, with friends, or a bigger community. And last but not least, there's also power sharing integrated. So you can use the science as an energy source to charge other electric vehicles, to charge your e-bike, to charge any electric appliance if you go camping or if you are somewhere and need electricity.
Hey, Torsten, sorry to interrupt, but could I, if I have the Scion, could I charge it from my friend's non-Scion car, like a Tesla? Could I say, oh, pardon me, do you have some extra battery I could?
Well, you could, with the Scion, charge a Tesla, but it's not happening. It's not possible the other way around because the Tesla is not ready yet. So the power charging or the power sharing is a USP that we have already implemented and developed that some other OEMs are still working on.
Until Elon's talking about the Cybertruck will be able to power in what they call camping mode. So it might be able to charge other vehicles even.
And yes, and Cybertruck is also one of the first cars that is integrating solar in its roof.
Yeah.
But the big difference is that competitors or peers are using glass while we are using polymer. I'll talk about this in a second. Before I do so, why? Why are we doing this? And the answer is, it's all about convenience. It's making, it's one of the biggest hassles is infrastructure. People have to wonder or think about getting their car charged again and again. And this is what you see here. We are comparing the Scion with a normal electric vehicle. And you see they're driving the exact same distance. And we're assuming here the exact same battery range of 250 kilometers. And a normal EV would have to charge 4 times within 6 weeks. The Scion, however, if you're only commuting 20 kilometers per day, you don't need to recharge because the sun is recharging the car. So within the same period and the same distance, you would only have to charge the Scion once. So it's a perfect commuter car. It's a perfect family-friendly car. For example, Marco spending a lot of time on this beautiful island of Ibiza. Sunny island, short distances. You don't need to charge the car at all for that kind of driving behavior. And this is all based on the solar integration in the car. And thanks to polymer, and that's our USP, we can not only integrate it in the roof, but in the whole vehicle body, in the doors, in the hood, in the trunk. And this is the big difference. It's lighter. Polymer is lighter than glass. There's more surface area, so it passes crash tests. And you can also do more complex forms. And this is what we have done here. And this is why we get 35 kilometers of additional range per day. Let me skip this due to time, but maybe focus on what we can also do. Integrating solar into a vehicle is very difficult because of the very small forms and shapes, and different shapes and so on. If you can achieve that, it's so much easier to also integrate solar in buses, in trucks, campers, caravans, and so on. And so we are also licensing our solar technology. And as of today, we already have 5 LOIs signed with various companies and various mobility solutions that you see up there. So it's a big market. Thanks to the whole mobility market becoming electric, solar can much more easily be integrated to charge the batteries, and hence we're looking at a tremendous market out there. Why are we doing this? Yes, of course, on the one hand to make money, on the other hand also to do good, to save on carbon, on CO2 emissions, and with the approximately 260,000 Scions that we'll be producing over the first 7 years, we will save approximately 20 million tons in CO2, which is an equivalent of 110,000 rail cars.
Okay, just like with Christian, let me pause you, and I want to hear what what is going through. It looks like you're done. That looks like your last slide. It looks like a beautiful interior shot, by the way. I love that, the screen and the. But I want to ask each of the investors real quick what's going through their minds at this point. Susanna, are you there?
Yes, here. Interesting. I think solar is obviously definitely on the rise, and we'll find all sorts of applications. Living in a dark country, I guess a little bit questionable how much this will help in driving a car. The range, 250 kilometers, sounds a bit short to me overall, especially when I know what kind of pipeline the big automakers have in their EVs that are coming in the coming couple of years. But interesting concept, maybe for some markets where we have a bit more sun than we do up here where we're sitting.
Well, it would work in the summer, all summer. It's your summer car, or you could get a second house south of the equator in the southern hemisphere. But in Thailand, it would work wonderfully. I can tell you that because it's a lot of short commuting down here. How about?
Can I comment on the range real quick? Because I understand your concern.
Yeah, go ahead.
And yes, 255 doesn't sound like a lot. If you think about it, if it adds up on average 16 kilometers per day, we are looking at approximately 115 per week. So adding this, you're looking at a total of 350, 360, 370 kilometers on average per week that you have. And this is people, I mean, you don't charge your car every day. You normally charge it once a week unless you go on a very long trip. And so for this normal behavior, you're more looking at 350, 360 kilometers, which is more than sufficient.
Okay.
So,
Jan, what's going through your mind at this point?
Well, it's definitely a very interesting segment in the sense that, I mean, we all know combustion is going out the door and there will be a lot of electricity. And we also have an infrastructure problem in the sense that if we now convert to electricity the way we're doing in Sweden and Norway, it won't be long before sort of the entire networks won't manage it. So we got to come up with better solutions. And that combined with the fact that cars generally are parked 95% of the time. So pools is sort of a massive things going forward. So I think we're definitely on to something that this will have to be a massive behavioral change. And it's also a huge issue that is unsolved technology. So that said, I mean, there is lots of competitors in the space, but it's definitely two sides of the business that has the future for it.
Yeah. Marco.
Well, I'm a little close to the story, as you may know. For me, it's mind puzzling. Yeah, Tesla worth 850 billion in the kind of non-sustainable electric car segment. They should buy existing factories rather than building new ones. I guess the publicity helped their share price. I'm a huge believer in solar. In fact, if you do look at various statistics, the efficiency of solar gained 3 times over the last 10 years. So if you speak to the solar experts at Sono, which is really the core competence, bringing solar energy to all types of vehicles, ships, trains, and cooling cars, that's the future. And I think we in Europe are just like completely blind to the fact that we do have this one amazing OEM, while the others haven't really brought out any electric cars we are using. I was fascinated when I started working for Sono exactly a year ago to see that in Germany, less than 5% of the cars sold are electric. And there's a bit of a supply issue, right? You cannot expect having a lot of cars sold if there's no supply. But now we do have the car, and despite not being able to deliver it as of yet, we have 13,000 orders. So how much more indication you need? And then from a top-down approach, and we talked earlier about that, I'm a big fan looking at markets. This car is 30-40% cheaper than the cheapest Tesla. And it's from Europe. And I guess we are a bit of European patriots. So the market cap is now 0.1 of Tesla. So putting a few big things in context, we may not think the car is pretty. We may want a car in red and it's only one color. But believe me, this is going to be one of the biggest OEMs the world has ever seen. And what I love about these guys, they built the car without the money in the garage themselves. Normally you have a philanthrope coming and throwing $1 billion, an ego pet OEM project, and then they run out of money and then somebody else needs to pick it up. But here they built the car, I drove it, I ordered one. And I spoke to the Kardashians because I told them, hey, you guys should put this car into your Instagram profiles. You have 500 million followers, excuse me. But we have to connect purpose to where the users are and bring good arguments. And I'm a huge fan of Sono Motors, the team, and I'm very excited here.
Actually, you have a good point, because the Pharrell Williams this week was on a Cake motorcycle, the Swedish electric motorcycle. And there's a very cute video on Pharrell's Instagram where he's riding the Cake motorcycle, again, 4 days ago. And he tells them, make me one in yellow now. I want it now. And then 3 days later, they have it ready. And they're like, we're sending it to you now. This fully yellow electric Cake motorcycle. So I imagine there is, in the Kardashians, I couldn't think of anyone better that have the furthest reach in social media. somebody who would want
I mean,
to.
how cool is it? They have all these followers. They're putting shampoo. I don't know. Now you can do something with your follower base, and you give signals. I think they're looking for content. I'm surprised there isn't an influencer sustainable product marketplace out there yet. Maybe it's something for we don't have time to do. That's what I suggest. Very early days. There's so many ways to roam, and this car story is fascinating. You guys should watch it. Not sure, it's probably too late now to invest. It's still possible, Torsten? Are they still?
Well, we closed a Series C in December and collected 45 million, and also got Scandinavian investors, Swedbank on board, for example, long only tier one investor, DNCA. So yes, some big names as well. We are looking at a potential second closing to be finished or to be closed within the next 4 weeks. If someone's interested, get in contact. Love to talk to you about more details in order to finalize development and get this car on the street.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Could I just comment the solar, the worries about the solar energy will not be enough in the Nordic climate. I put some solar on my roof here in Stockholm. I have a really small house, and I produce more energy when I consume for a year. And it's not just, I mean, for me, my solar panels, it's not just it's a very good way for me to communicate and influence my neighbors to do the same. So now 3 of my neighbors have put up their solar panels because I was first. So the Sono Motors is so much more than just a car. It's a different kind of company, and it's truly the only sustainable car company out there. I mean, Tesla is a technology leader, but Sono Motors is a sustainable leader. And I mean, the only risk is that they can't produce the car. If they can produce what they have on scale, Sono Motors will be a skyrocket. It will be the next Tesla. It will be a sustainable leader. And I will buy one, definitely. And I will looking forward to explore the partnership where we're also going to sell this to the whole Wheel of Time community, because we have 40,000 influencers, and we're going to help in building this. This is exactly the solutions we want to see scaling, and our platform is built to help those kind of companies, and also Goldwings and all the other companies doing the right thing.
I just wanted to show the picture again, because yes, for Scandinavian markets, sun has a different angle, and this is why we have the solar modules in the door as well. Also during winter, there's sun in Germany doesn't come from above, it comes from the side. So yes, Ingmar, I agree. It's not just for Germany or Italy or Spain, also for Scandinavian or other countries.
Very cool.
Torsten, when listening to your idea, it sounds obvious that of course this is the solution. But I hadn't heard many cases like this once before. Is there something special about the timing of you now being, is it being able to do it in polymer that's the trick, or?
Yes, I would say 2 or 3 elements. One is efficiency of solar cells has improved a lot over the last 10 to 20 years. Second, batteries are improving a lot. And electrification is just happening. Marco talked about it, 2-3% last year, the year before, 40-50% within the next 20 years. And these elements together with having a team only focusing on research and development of solar integration into the car, that is what is taking place at Sono Motors. So we have more than 10 people, solar experts, who have been working on solar integration in production, in injection molding process, and in integrating it into the car for the last 4 years. And yeah, we are quite far advanced, and can't wait to launch our first product, because we think it will have a huge impact on consumer behavior and on the EV market out there.
I think it's super, super cool. It's one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. One final thought. There's a considerable van life community growing internationally, as you're probably aware, of people building, taking transport vans and sprinter vans, and then building, a bed and a bathroom and and a small kitchen, and almost all of them put solar panels on their roof and little inverters inside and lithium batteries inside. I imagine that audience, and by the way, coincidentally, Ford just announced their electric van, the what do they call it, Transit, and Mercedes Sprinter now says they're ready to release their new electric van. The thing that's missing from both of them, of course, is the solar aspect, which all of these van life people are adding, out third-party solar panels themselves, and doing crash courses in how to become, solar power installers on their own van/home. So I imagine, I'm curious what your thought is around the van model versus the model that your first model.
Fully agree. I think especially due to the big surfaces, the impact of integrating solar in a bus, in a truck, in a RC recreational vehicle, RV, it's just so much bigger because you have so much more surface, so you can integrate so much more modules. And of course, it's a huge market. Also, all those cooling trucks for grocery delivery and so on. They need so much energy simply for the cooling, and this could be perfectly solved with solar integration. So yeah, as well, we have started talking to various companies. We have one LOI with a truck company already, and it will take longer because development times are longer for buses and trucks, but it is the future, and can't wait to integrate solar cells in those bigger vehicles.
Yeah. Is there a particular timing sweet spot in the near future where expected battery innovation, expected panel efficiency innovations, of course they're continuous and ongoing, but with Tesla's newly announced kind of expected improvements, and then on the panel side as well, I believe there is a particular power per kilogram, kilowatt per kilogram sweet spot, where once we reach that, it will become a sort of inevitability, like a market cost efficiency inevitability.
Of course, I have to say this, it is happening now. And the difference again is polymer versus glass, because polymer being cheaper, lighter,
yeah,
more robust and so on. So adding solar integration to the cyan, the incremental cost is very little, but the benefit over the lifetime of a car, which is normally approximately 10 years, is much bigger already than the cost, and also from a CO2 perspective.
Very, very cool. Thank you for doing that. I'm going to jump into our quick little announcements, and right here on my deck. So there we go, Susanna and Marco and Jan and Klaus. So we did the 3 pitches. Announcements, we have the Post and Tirelison, sorry for my terrible pronunciation. They're looking for innovative companies. Sverker sent me an email, and there's the link at the bottom, challengesgov.se, and you have to apply before February 25th at 4 p.m. Go ahead and take a screenshot, go to the link, apply there. I think they're having a challenge getting it out, so if you apply, you probably have a good chance of getting in there. And then one other one, the European Space Agency is looking for entrepreneurs with an idea or startups, and based on transfer of space technology. So if that fits you, they are going to be giving up business development support for 2 years, office space, $50K with non-equity, networking and etc., technical support, on and on. And here's where you reach out to them. If you're in Skellefteå or northern Sweden, Christina, and in Uppsala is Monica, and I believe maybe elsewhere it's Deborah. But reach out to them. You have to apply before February 22nd. And again, you get 50K and all kind of no strings attached and everything that goes with it. So those are both very good programs. But I wanted to thank our partners once again for allowing us to put on this event and bringing all of us together for what I hope will be, I hope we can circle back on this next year and maybe each January, make this the ongoing January theme that we follow up on the progress that's made. It's one of the things we do in December. We do predictions every December and we follow up, and that's been a very cool tradition. But I think this should be a new tradition that we do a sustainability session every January to keep track on that. So, the downside is that we will have 1 year's less time, unfortunately. So the clock will say 7 years at the bottom, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
it's really stressful. But we are here. I mean, entrepreneurs, investors. When we work together, change is going to happen, and it's so important that we work together on the right solution. And I must say, thank you so much for hosting this event, Tyler. It's given me a lot of hope. I didn't think this event had happened just 2 years ago. Now it's happening so much in this field, and love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, as Bjorn said at the beginning, it seems like everyone on this call is one of the people in the early part of the curve, but I think really smart, cool folks always figure the cool stuff out early, and then everyone else comes along a little later, and so that's what I'm excited to see about for next year. And thanks to our partners and to all of you guys, Klaus and Marco and Susanna, Bjorn and Ingmar for helping us, and everybody. I loved the pitches. Those were really brilliant solutions, and really wishing the best for you until we meet again next year. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Tuva.